Hello and welcome from Germany. And today in this video I'm going to tell you about what I'm doing here and what I did yesterday. But why am I in this field at the moment? Perhaps some great battle took place here in the distant past. Or was it something else? Well, actually it was something else. Nothing happened here as far as I'm aware. Something might have happened, but I don't know about it. I came out of my vehicle today, walked over the bridge. Whilst walking over the bridge of the Zschopau River, I noticed there's this big white bird. So I chased after it. So I tried to get a photograph of it. And it flew off. So I went up to the place where I saw it land. And then some ducks started fighting just before I got the camera out. And it flew off again. And I got to a bit further. And it flew off again. Then, after the fourth attempt, I decided I didn't want to be photographed. So, that's it. No photograph. It was a great egret. A great egret here. They're not found here. Yeah, I know they're not found here. But I can't think what else it could have been. And now, great egret, you might... maybe in southern Poland, I suppose it's possible, but here in Germany, anywhere in Germany, you know, I mean, this is Eastern Germany at that, and very, very odd to see it. But then again, the great egret's noted for extending its range, and that's what it was doing, possibly here on this river. Anyways, that's why I'm here. In front, there, you can see it just about. That was the Sachsenburg concentration camp. And this is the sort of the back end of the concentration camp. That place, we can see now in front of the shooting range, was actually built there. And later it was replaced by a swimming pool. And the swimming pool's still there all these years later. And Sachsenburg concentration camp is an early concentration camp. It was set up almost immediately. Now, Hitler had said, I think in 1921 or 22, that concentration camps would be set up once they seized power. Now, in 1921 and 1922, Hitler was just some nutter with a few equally nutty followers in Munich. But by 1933, these nutters had been appointed to power by the conservative elements around Hindenburg in order to hide up the scandal of the Eastern Aid, which was a financial scandal where money, huge sums of money, had gone astray, and it even implicated President Hindenburg amongst others. This, in my opinion, is the number one reason why Hitler was appointed. Now, in the elections, first elections in 1932, Hitler had gained 37% of the support, and in the elections of November 32, that support had dropped to about 32%. Still, the Nazi Party was the biggest party in Parliament, but, you know, there'd been elections before, and being the biggest party twice was, okay, it was at that moment, perhaps it was something to be proud of, but 2/3 of those who voted didn't vote for the Nazi Party. So, Hitler was appointed, and he became Chancellor, and then through a variety of schemes effectively banned the opposition from competing in the elections of March 1933, and following the Reichstag fire decree, which banned many opposition and infringed members and infringed upon human rights, including secrecy. So by the time of the elections of March 1933, where the police and the SA were walking hand in hand to crush members of the opposition in Prussia, the largest state in Germany. It was these things that brought Hitler to power. It was first of all the conservatives, who later themselves in many cases became victims of the very same system that they'd put in power. And then it was the use of violence, extreme violence, to keep people in power by the SA, and knowing that they could use this violence and not have to worry about the law. Now there in front, got a better view of Sachsenburg concentration camp, and that was a cormorant that just flew in front of us. Cormorants, my favourite, well, one of my favourite birds. My favourite bird is the spoonbill, but one of my favourite birds is the cormorant, and they're quite common, fortunately. So, the initial, what was called wild concentration camps were set up. So you had these SA thugs on the streets. Now, if you're an SA thug and you're leading a group of other SA thugs, what you could do is you find an empty building somewhere, then you round up, kidnap effectively a group of opposition people, or even people you don't know. Maybe you had some sort of small business or somebody took your job, so you got rid of your opponents in this way, and then rounded them up and you put them in a wild concentration camp. Now, it's often said that Dachau was the first concentration camp. It wasn't, but never mind, I'll talk about that in a different video. And this concentration camp here was set up officially. Now, in Saxony, there were approximately 25%, of 1/4 of all the concentration camps, which were set, early concentration, were set up here. And this one here was the largest. And so what happened was, the head of a local SA Standarte worked in the tax office. Because he worked in the tax office, they must have thought he was good at organising things. And then, largely thanks to his efforts, the Nazis got control of the Saxon parliament, and then, through official means, the local government of Saxony rented this property here from the from that company. And so it was a textile company. Inside there were machines. The company clearly had problems for some time, because inside it was in an awful state when the first people had turned up here. Now, above the concentration camp, above the factory, there is a Schloss, a fortified house, castle if you like, and there the first prisoners on the 2nd of May 1933 were taken there, and their job was to prepare the factory for use as an internment camp. So they were living in, or sleeping in the castle. There you can see the castle up the top of the hill. Walk down, and then they would dismantle the machines, they would make beds and clean the place up, ready to take the first political prisoners who came from Flora and Chemnitz. So when these people arrived, then those that were in the castle, in fact, had to move out the castle, because that was to be used by a section of the women's NS National Socialist organization, and thus began this concentration camp. Now, the first commandant was somebody, it wasn't even the commandant, the word commandant was used later, only when the SS took over. But this was the SA, but he had the ideas that you don't beat people up. You've beaten them up in order to get power, but now they're in power, then that's it. People have to be, you don't have to humiliate them and be nasty to them any longer. Having said that, he did occasionally have bursts of temper, but the prisoners didn't actually, recollections of him are not universally bad. Anyway, I'll do that, more on that, different video, which will be linked to, should I find myself in a situation that I've actually done the video before I upload this one. So we've got these signs actually being put up as well now, but these are all, it's relatively new, and I shall explain why it's all relatively new in a moment. So the prisoners here were largely from the Communist Party and from the Social Democratic Party. Nearly entirely. One of the was even one of the people who took part in the 1918 revolution in the naval shipyards in Bremen, I think it was, or Hamburg, can't quite remember. But so they looked for people who had shown opposition to Nazism. Now, there is something about Nazi ideology. Even Goebbels said this. Oscar Dierlewanger said it in October 1944, a bit late by then, that they believed that those who had shown opposition but been communists could be turned through education into Nazis. Because at the end of the day, there wasn't such a, well, maybe there is a bit of difference between the two. The end result between the two isn't all that much different. There you go. There's the concentration camp. I know it doesn't look like it, does it? It just doesn't look, it's not what you might expect. But this is what it looks like in the old photographs. I used a photograph in a video I did on Gustav Sorge, who was a Nazi criminal, and the photograph in that video, it was from before 1933, but it looks exactly the same. So this was this textile plant here. The SS took over the running of the camp in after the Night of the Long Knives, and the first SS person in charge was Max Simon, a noted criminal during the Second World War. He's probably best known for the Marzabotto mass murder of the entire village in Italy, but also for the Brettheim hangings, when German civilians were murdered in April 1945. I've done 2 videos on crimes which he was directly responsible for, and also I'll put links to them below. Then the next person who came in was Koch, the husband, Mr. Koch, the husband of Ilse Koch, the Beast of Belsen. He went on to be Commandant at Buchenwald. Other people who were here include a future Commandant at Auschwitz. This was the place the SS used to train its future guard officer staff, cadre at the concentration camp. It was here at this place that they actually learnt the ropes, so to speak. What's really unusual about this place, though, is it's intact. You can still, the building still is, as you can see. These are the sites that would have greeted those prisoners who came here on the 2nd of May, 1933. Now you can see on the other side I've got my vehicle parked and there's another vehicle next to me. But part of the work that the people had to do was in straightening out the Zschopau River. And this is something you see often done in concentration camps in Poland. Above all, they would round up Jews from a ghetto and make them do work on rivers. And so the point of this is actually effectively on flood defences. That's why, for example, the Rhine is highly regulated as a river. So when it floods, it's really, really bad. If you take something like the Vistula, for example, it's much less regulated. So it can be a bit nasty when there's a flood, but nowhere near as nasty as the Rhine, for example. I'm sorry, the Vistula is, of course, it is regulated. It's not entirely unregulated. Anyway, coming down here, I'm going to show you the other car park. And right, so the car park's over there. But what's interesting about that is that there's a sign there. I couldn't find. I know it's there. I just couldn't find it when I was looking for it yesterday. And on it, it's written that this was built by prisoners from Sachsenburg in 1933. So they're advertising it. The point of advertising it is to create fear. So there was nothing secret about any of these early concentration camps. It may have been secret what happened to the people inside, but that they existed was absolutely open. And you may think, well, a big building like that, how could you hide it? Well, we are a bit off the beaten track. Earlier, you might have been able to hear the motorway. In fact, the motorway is only, as the crow flies, about a kilometre from here. I hear it quite clearly during the night. But I mean, you come off the motorway, it's a rather long way to actually get here. Now, today, this factory is largely empty. In 1937, the camp was closed down, and the prisoners were moved to Sachsenhausen and to Buchenwald. During the time of its existence, the number of deaths compared to other camps was relatively low, but there were people here who were murdered. Max Sachs, for example, was a former member of parliament. He was brought here in 1935 and he was murdered. But the first two people were killed here in the summer of 1934, it would seem. But anyway, so in 1937, I think with the business opportunities now a little better, it went back to its use in textiles. It made parachute silk. Obviously, it got itself a military command order. And during the communist times, there was also some kind of it was a company here, closed in 1990 for obvious reasons. Today the building's largely empty, except for something involving this. This is hydroelectric power. I've forgotten what these things here are called, but obviously the water comes down. That moves the... I've forgotten the name of it. I'll look it up. Moves that thing around, moves the turbine, and that in turn creates electricity. Makes a bit of noise as well. Now, I have shown around the camp in other videos inside, and there shall be more done during my stay here. Now, this place really did interest me. It's off the beaten track, it's not known, and it is really important in the development of the concentration camp system. And these are things, I think, to understand the Nazi ideology and how these things actually came about is what I'm trying to do. I hope this camera's not shaking too much. My gimbal gave up the ghost. I've got a second gimbal in the vehicle, and I didn't actually. I only took it out of its box yesterday. I haven't even set it up yet. So maybe I should have done that first before coming out for a walk. But my nature is to be walking around all the time. Now we're coming up to a bridge here. This bridge existed before the concentration camp. Now I'm sure it's been done up since then, but in the old photographs, and there's one up here, and no, it's not very clear. No, okay, right. Well, this is the bridge. There you are. Not clear at all, is it? But this bridge here, that the photograph, it dates to 1933-34. We've got some of the inmates, and they've been guarded by the SA. So we know the date. Now, we know the date also by the fact that they were allowed to have visitors. So at the beginning, that was possible, and they were allowed to come this far out and sit around here with their families. And you wouldn't have seen that in later events in the concentration camps at all. Oh look, there's that bird I was chasing. I don't know if it's the same one, but it's the same species. It won't come out very clearly. Unfortunately, I'm not using the camera or the phone with the telephoto lens. It can bring it in really clearly, but it's down there. Great egret. See, it did that to wind me up, you see. Started off here chasing after it, and then it comes back. So here, from this angle, actually, you can see over there's the former Commandant's building. It was only knocked down October 2022. It was found to have a lot of dry rot. In fact, the first Commandant occupied it, and then parts of the building were used by the SS, the SA, and then the SS, above all the SS, because when the SA also actually made their own accommodation initially in this building down here. I think that probably the Commandant went to that house that was here, quite a nice looking house. And anyway, it was used as a nursery in East German times, and then it was abandoned for 25 years. In 2015 they found it had dry rot in it, and the building inspector said it wasn't safe and it had to be knocked down, which to my way I think it's a pity. But anyway, there was an online petition for which nearly 1,000 people actually signed, because I looked it up yesterday myself. It's now closed, but it's too late anyway to do anything about it because it's been knocked down. Anyway, I do have a photograph of what it looked like a few years ago, and I shall stick that one up when I do a documentary on this place. But yesterday when I came, and I thought, what a wonderful day. It was autumn, 10th of November, bright, sunny, wonderful shadows, and so walking around here looked supremely attractive. And even an overcast day like today, I think the place looks very attractive, in my opinion. So, to give you a little bit of the background now to what I was doing. Yesterday I was in Bautzen. On the day before yesterday, which was my birthday, I went to Bautzen prison, the Stasi prison in Bautzen, spent the day there and walked around Bautzen. In the morning, had another walk around Bautzen, and then I came here. And during the summer, because the summer was really roasting hot, I did a tour. You were seeing, I've got lots of videos from Treblinka, from East Prussia, Warsaw. And then I was sort of dreaming of, oh, it'd be nice in the autumn when it isn't as hot as this. And so now I'm out, and it's pretty cold on my fingers, but it's really good to be out, to be able to do something like this. I would like to think, actually, I could do this. No, I like my job. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but I would like to be able to do this on a full-time basis. Trouble is, the income's not particularly good. Anyway, there's a view of the bridge. Next to that, somebody there's camping as well. Great place to put your motorhome, as I have got mine over here. Here we've got a wall, which is a monument dating to East German times. So it's very, very typical of the sort of thing you see in the Soviet Union as well. And the way people sort of helping each other, although none of them have got a Soviet soldier there. But their looks, though, the way they're portrayed is very, very typical of communist art, I suppose that's the way of putting it. Now that castle up there dates to the 10th century. In fact, most of what you can see today, I think, is 16th century. It's today abandoned. No, abandoned is probably not the right word, but it's sort of all closed off. I mean, it looks pretty good from this angle, but inside, I hope that doesn't get any dry rot. Now the amount of water that's used from the fact, because the spinning works are sort of noted for needing water. I think the factory itself dates the 19th century. I'll have to get some documents on that one. And see, this is a off-road motorhome here. And there's a lot more on my other channel should you be interested in that type of thing. And now, I'll tell you what, we'll have a quick walk through here. So they've got a documentation centre here, so I've got an appointment here today for that. I'll now come into this is the camp itself. Now this area here is noted for the iron ore. It's the ore region. There's silver was mined here, and the prisoners here, part of what they did was they worked in a quarry which is approximately maybe a kilometre down there. The quarry, there's not much that can be seen of it today, and the reason for that is that in fact it was sort of lost and we can see it though in old photographs, because some owl living there or something, the Nature Conservancy area, and they asked people not to go in. So I, being in the Nature Conservancy, I just said, okay, right, I'll read this to you. Entering the concentration camp. I shall read it to you. The SS took over the concentration camp in 1934 and immediately ordered the construction of a solid concrete wall complete with gate. The entrance to the camp was permanently guarded, making it virtually impossible for prisoners to escape. Anyone entering the camp had to pass through the gate and show their permit to the guards. SS officers frequently maltreated new arrivals as they were being admitted. Traces of the gate are still visible today, and the masonry of the adjoining building was here in the Commandantur that the adjutant sat. As the Commandant's right-hand man, he was in charge of administering the dossiers of SS personnel and compiling reports. Even today, the Kommandantur building still has 4 detention cells where guards locked prisoners up under brutal conditions for days on end. It was a way of punishing those prisoners who failed to observe the rules of the camp. If, for instance, a prisoner did not leap out of bed the instant they were woken, or if SS officers felt that prisoners had not made their beds properly. And here we have a quote from Hans Cerf, who was Jewish and he was in prison at Sachsenburg from 1935 to 1936. and this was actually written in English. It was Friday the 13th of September 1935. The truck loaded with about 15 inmates was let in at the gate of concentration camp Sachsenburg and stopped at a large square surrounded by several buildings. Now every busy SS man took over. "Get down, you swine! Faster, faster!" Everybody was in a hurry. Before you could realise what was going on, you were sitting in a chair and someone with an electric razor was shaving your hair off. Then you went to a horse trough filled with dirty water where someone used a stiff horse brush to scrub your scalp. Blood flowed freely. Then changed into the Häftling's uniform, the prisoner uniform, a blue and white striped coarse garment, and standing with hands folded behind your neck while the SS patrolled to see if anyone took his arms down, which was considered a refusal to obey, punishable by a severe beating. And here we will find the gymnasium. A place of interrogation. Once more, I shall read it. It's this building here. It seems to look agricultural. The gymnasium was put to very different uses during the time of the concentration camp. Prisoners were forced to exercise inside the gymnasium to the point of exhaustion. The guards also engaged in sporting activities inside the gym. The gymnasium was also a place where prisoners were interrogated and tortured. Prior to their arrest, most of the prisoners had in some way conspired against the Nazis. They had been active in political factions and parties such as the SPD, the Social Democratic Party, and the Communist Party. The Nazis were keen to find out more about these factions, so the guards would bring their prisoners to be interrogated. Prisoners were beaten if they proved reluctant to denounce their fellow resistance fighters. They were also required to take part in political training sessions inside the gymnasium. Max Harnell, the first leader in charge of the camp, believed he could convince prisoners of the merits of National Socialism and compel them to listen to lectures and radio broadcasts as well as read Nazi newspapers. And here is the account of Karl Kölsch, a communist imprisoned here from 1935 to 1937. A prisoner account tells of a prisoner remembrance ceremony that was held in the gymnasium. On 9th November 1935, the SS officers at the camp commemorated the march on Munich, which had taken place on that day 12 years previously. It was in Munich in 1923 that Hitler had staged a putsch against the democratic system, a coup that failed. On the anniversary of the putsch in 1935, prisoners were subject to abuse and maltreatment at the hands of the SS at the camp. The infamous day of 9th of November dawned for us. It's a day that will forever remain in our memory. We had had tough hours during the day. In the evening in the gymnasium, we were forced to listen to the anniversary celebrations from Munich. As we headed back to our quarters, the prisoner by the name of Puchin was pulled out of the ranks and yelled at, "You're laughing, you swine, while we have tears in our eyes." Puchin had already been sentenced to flogging on 3 occasions. We knew he would now have to endure this torture for a 4th time. Guten Tag. This area here is that of the Appellplatz. It mightn't look like an Appellplatz, but it is absolutely recognizable from the photographs, without any doubt. And so let's have a look at what the sign says. And I shall read it to you again. It's in English. I'm not translating. If I translated it, it'd be much slower. So we have the factory building. The factory building was used to house prisoners and guards. from 1933 onwards. By then, the premises of the disused spinning mill had stood empty for 3 years. The owner made the building available so it could be converted into a concentration camp. Between 1933 and 34, all the guards were billeted on the ground floor. Then more and more guards had arrived at Sachsenburg. In the end, there was no more room for them inside the factory, so only the guards who were on guard duty at the time spent the night there. The SS stationed the other guards in barracks at Frankenberg. The prisoners were accommodated on 4 floors. Each floor had its own day room and a dormitory with 600 beds. The prisoners were forced to sleep in triple bunks with straw mattresses or palliasses. Privacy was out of the question. They were under constant surveillance from the guards, who would frequently storm into the dormitories without warning and harass the prisoners. Hugo Graf, communist, imprisoned in Sachsenburg, 1934-35, said, 1936, the prisoners would sit on the very edge of the lowest bunk. Each bunk consisted of 3 beds, and in this extremely uncomfortable position they would eat, mend their camp clothing and write letters. None of the windows in the prisoners' quarters was to be left open between 8 p.m. and dawn. The inside of the dormitory was of course unbearably stifling, the stench emanating from the wet, sweaty work clothes making it torture to breathe. There were only 4 toilets without a flush available inside the main prisoners' room. The washroom, it was so basic and inadequate that large number of prisoners were unable to wash or brush their teeth for a whole week. Now, to add a little bit more to that, it was only 4 toilets. I think, off the top of my head, I think there were 28 taps. I think it was 28. I mean, I might have to correct that one later. And yes, there's another thing I wanted to say about the Frankenberg. The barracks at Frankenberg were later used by the Indian Legion of the SS. So there was Indian prisoners captured largely at Tobruk in 1941. They were brought to Frankenberg to form this unit which was designed to fight for Indian independence. It was later moved from Frankenberg was too small. It was later moved to König something. It's a bit further to the east. König seat, whatever. König something. Anyway, I'll look that one up again. And here, so this is the Commandant's building here, which was knocked down in October 2022. Here, I'll read this to you. The former factory owner's villa was used as a residence for the Commandant and other leaders in charge of the concentration camp. A fence separated the villa and the garden from the camp around. The Commandant was the most powerful person at the time. He determined the conditions under which prisoners were detained. From the windows of the villa, he could look straight out into the Appellplatz. A posting at Sachsenburg concentration camp opened up further career opportunities for several commandants and camp leaders. The camp's first commandant, Karl Otto Koch. Now, he was the first SS commandant, because before that they were called a director. So Mr. Harnell was the director. Koch was later put in charge at Buchenwald for 4 years. Photographs from his photo album depict the farewell party held in his honour at the officers' mess. There you go. There's him. It's him at his due. And such parties were also intended as a bonding exercise for the men who subsequently would mutually support one another at subsequent camps. The villa later became a children's nursery under the in East Germany. By 1990, the building was empty and dilapidated. In 2015, the town of Frankenberg purchased the villa and decided to raise it to the ground. 2018, the municipal council stipulated that the foundations would be preserved as a reminder of history. Now, there you have what it looked like before. So you can see we've got where I'm standing now is possibly a very similar place. Almost directly, and with got it's like a lower floor, should we say? The with English, like the basement, so ground floor, if you like, first floor, and there's even in the attic. So what it would appear that the commandants actually made themselves an apartment in there, and other parts of it were used for official functions. Anyway. Ernst Schade, Social Democrat, in prison at Sachsenburg, and he said there were roughly 3 of us in the work detail. all men. If we had to leave early, we would walk in at 5 a.m. and march to the villa, reporting at the guard gate, and then we entered the villa. The SS officers and the Commandant lived inside the villa. We would polish their boots early, and everything was in order. The black SS uniforms were brushed down. After that, everything was in order, and we were left to our own devices. We also got extra food. We pocketed some of the stuff that was in the officers' mess intended for the officers. Oh, sorry, I didn't have the camera there pointing at something of interest. Right. Now, I mean, I understand why the house had to come down. I mean, having said that, you know, if it's got dry rot, which is a fungus, then it would have taken, well, it would have been pretty serious to repair. Right, SS training grounds, which are here, and I shall once more read this to you. The sports ground was already part of the concentration camp at the time. The SS assigned all prisoners under the age of 30 to sports details. For hours on end, they were made to run, jump, crawl across the sports ground in all weathers and were beaten in the process. Many collapsed out of sheer exhaustion. Sport was also part of the daily routine for the guard units and part of their military training, just as shooting practice was. In 1934, prisoners were made to build a shooting range for the SS at the back of the sports ground. There, the guards would practice shooting at moving targets with heavy weapons. The SS would close off the nearby forest track during shooters practice, so no walkers or hikers would be accidentally shot by a stray bullet. So that's the place where this video started off at. After the concentration camp was dissolved in 1937, an outdoor swimming pool was built in the place of the shooting range. Sachsenburg was an important training facility for SS guards. By January 1936, there were more than 600 guards stationed in Sachsenburg. They were being drilled to serve at larger concentration camps such as Buchenwald and Sachsenhausen. Then you've got some good pictures here actually. So here we have, there you can see the Commandant's villa. So what's that say? View of the rear section of the camp compound with the Commandant's villa, the sports ground and the shooting range. At this point the shooting range was still under construction. Photographs from the photo album of Camp Commandant Karl Otto Koch in 1934. There you go, there's another one, prisoners on the shooting range, again from the Koch album. And we've got here this photograph, Georg Laudel, Walter Rother and Anton Schmutzler, all prisoners at Sachsenburg concentration camp, standing on the sports ground. The photographs most probably taken during one of the visiting days at Common Facts until 1934, and that photograph dates to May 1933. As part of the work detail I've been assigned to building the shooting range, I stood for weeks on end barefoot in the Zschopau, and I had to dig up medium-sized rocks and put them into a bucket, which was then carried away by another prisoner, said Alfred Bartel, who was here in 1935. He wrote that in 1982. So that's the. Now, one thing which is very curious about this, and we see this not, they had the SS sports. I'm using sports in inverted commas. It was a way of torturing prisoners, but they seem to do this everywhere. For example, accounts from the Warsaw Ghetto, where there'd be a work detail set up, and instead of going off to do the work, the first thing they'd do would be to arrange a fist fight between the two weakest people there, and this fist fight wouldn't stop until blood had been drawn. This, I mean, totally bizarre practice. I've got, for example, in Greece, there's accounts of where people are forced to do exercises standing. I can't remember if this was in Athens or in Salonika, where they do exercises for until people actually fainted in the heat of the summer. So that's it. We're not going to get any further. Swimming pool's down there. That was the shooting range earlier, and I see, however, the local football team here, founded in 1948. So there you go. That's a Sachsenburg concentration camp. one of the very early ones, and I think definitely for those interested in such things, worth a visit. And I'm glad to see that the authorities here are trying to set up some kind of to preserve it. That's really important. And also it needs to be pointed out that not only you preserve the memory of the suffering and the people who died here. Now, as far as this camp was concerned, as I said earlier, the amount of deaths here was not particularly large when you compare it to other places. That's not in any way to diminish the value of the people who were murdered here. Having said that, what is particularly important is that this was the place, as I said up there, where many people were trained for their role in the concentration camp system, and indeed in one case in the Holocaust. So that is why this, I think, needs to be remembered. Another benefit from today, though, this is part of a tourist region, and this education could also become part of the tourist offering of the area. I mean, and there's one of the houses outside. It's got a sign, information for people who are walking. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you found it interesting. I upload every Tuesday and every Friday at 2000 hours my time. So I'm based in Poland and in Germany, and if you found that interesting, then you'll want to be here. I either do documentary style videos, I do this type of video as well, where I'm just sort of walking around, speaking off the top of my head, although of course I was aided today by the signs.